Hello, and welcome to another session on using Blender for video editing. It has been quite a while since I created my last video about Blender. We are now at version 3.4.1, and there are so many changes, so many new features since I last talked about features in general. So this video, I'm just going to go over everything that I have noticed since I started picking it up again. We'll just go bit by bit, starting with the sequence editor and then moving on from there. And that's going to be the whole thing. Just talking about what I see that's new, and actually some things that have changed since I've done recording about specific things, like, for example, how to import an animated GIF. So I'll mention those specifically as we get to them. So let's get started. I'm going to go into Blender, and you can see I've already got it set up for video editing. So the first thing we can see right here is that we now have named channels. So it's what's visible is just 1 to 8, and as I try to scroll up and down, it doesn't let me. But the good news is you can still have many channels. It's just that they kind of automatically become available as you start bringing in some media. So let me go ahead and do that now. I'll just press capital A here, Shift A, and bring in a sample movie. Let's go with this one. So then with this video in place, what I can do is I can just take this part and just grab it and bring it up higher. And as I bring it up, then you can see now these things become available. And it keeps going up. Actually, I don't even know how high it goes up. Let's keep bringing it up to see how far we can go. So from 1 up to, wow. That's a lot of channels. So it doesn't look like there's a limit. So far we're at what, 76, and it goes up to 77. I don't know how high it goes. I don't ever use that many, but that's just good to know. So you're not actually limited to 8, even though it looks that way. Now that I actually have this up here, now you can actually use this scroll bar to go all the way up or down. The other thing to notice about the channels is that they have these handy little mute checkboxes. You can mute an entire channel in one go. So as an example, I'm just going to take all these clips and I'll start cutting here and here. Cut. There we go. Now I've got a bunch of individual strips, and I can just click on this, and now they are all muted, on or off. So also about these channels, we also have these lock buttons next to them. So my understanding is that you can click on these, and now the strips are mostly locked in terms of, I suppose, moving them around. Like I can't press G to drag it anywhere. If I go into here, I wonder if I can change. Well, I can still change opacity, so maybe it's just in terms of not allowing it to be moved, picked up and moved, or anything else along those lines. Let's see, can I take this and can I grab that? And yeah, so I can still do things like that. I can still change the X and Y by either pressing G to grab from here, or going into the transform to make those adjustments. But I can't move the strip itself. And it looks like I can still delete them. So in general then, just preventing the movement of the strips from where they are in the sequence editor, but not actually preventing you from changing the properties of those strips. The last thing about the channels is that you can rename them. So let's say like I had all of my, maybe I had like the background track or something over here. Then I can double click on this and say, and call this something else like BGM. Right, so that's it about channels. Speaking of renaming though, we now have a hotkey for doing renames. So that would be F2, just like the standard rename button. So if I press F2 right now, you can see it allows me to change the name of that particular strip. So I'll just call that example. Oops, if I can spell that properly. You know what? I can't. That's fine. And it appears that this is going to be like a global hotkey. So if, for example, I were to set a marker at this point by pressing M, then I can go down into the timeline with my mouse and then press F2 and then, whoops, how did that didn't work. Okay, maybe let's select that first and then press F2. There you go. Now I can change the marker name like here. Okay, something like that. And like usual with Blender, right, everything is kind of context sensitive. So where you have your mouse dictates where that hotkey will act on. So pressing F2 up here is for the sequence strip name, down here for the marker name. So going back into the sequencer, the view menu has a lot of new items in there. So let me just bring this up a bit. So you can see here we've got here, preview as backdrop. So when you click that, then within the sequence editor, you can see what your output's going to look like. Now, this is similar to something we already have, right? Sequencer and preview. Similar, except here, right, the preview is on the top, whereas over here it is the background to the sequencer itself. So that is an interesting addition. So also inside of this view menu, if we go under range, we'll see we have some new items to play with here. So we've had this before, set preview range, where and the shortcut there is P. So if you click on that, then you can just draw a box, and that'll be your preview area. So that when, let me mute the, I'll click on that. There we go, muted. So when we press space to play, it just plays that one subsection of your entire scene there. So other things from here, so obviously the Alt P to clear, but here's an interesting one. Set preview range to strips. I think this is new, where if you select it, so I have this strip selected right now. So when I go to range and set preview range to strips, there you go. You can just get it to be focused on the specific strip you have selected. That's pretty neat. Okay, let me press Alt P to clear that. The next interesting thing is again from the view menu, and for me it's a little bit hiding away here. This thing, export subtitles. It will take your text strips and export them as subtitles, creates an SRT file. For me, will probably not be as useful because I tend to do a lot of my work inside of a scene and then I create another scene to chop it up. And what I found is that when you export, it only exports from your current scene. So not so useful for me, but let me show you quickly how it works. So I'll go over here at the 20 frame mark and I'll say add text and I'll say example 1, and then I'll jump over here to about the 4-second mark and I'll add another one and I'll call it last, right? And now I will go to view, find that entry, export subtitles, and I will dump that to the temp folder and call it just fine untitled.srt export. And now let me pop open terminal and go into that folder and I'll type up that file, and there you go. Example 1 and last with the appropriate time ranges set up. So another item here along the top of this header is this thing here, which is the overlap mode. They've probably had this for a while and I just never really paid attention to it. But you can see right now it's set to shuffle. So as an example, if I try and take, first let me unlock this. So if I were to take this text strip, grab it and try to stick it in here, it won't let me. It shows up as red. Now what would happen if I release at this point? It pops over to the end. Now let's see something else. I will go here and change it from shuffle to expand. Okay, and now I'm going to grab it again and I will put it here, and this time Blender makes space for it. And in addition to making space for it on this channel, it actually pushes everything out to accommodate. Let me try that again just to see. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to grab these ones and I'll stick them, oops, why can I not move these? Why can I not move these? Grab, there we go. Okay, and I'm going to stick these right over here. Let's see what happens. So now I'm going to try this again and I will try to put it here. Yes, okay, so it's shifting everything over to allow for this specific strip to fit within this channel. Pretty neat. So I definitely will use this as needed. Not sure what overwrite does. Trim or split strips to resolve overlap. Interesting. Let's try that. I'm going to change there, and I'm going to try over here this time. Oh, okay. Yeah, it just outright replaces it. And then, yeah, so it got rid of those bits there. Okay, so that's what that feature is. I'll change it back to shuffle because that's what I'm used to. One of the things I mentioned at the start is that animated GIFs used to be a big deal. At least I couldn't figure out how to do it. But now, you just need to add it as a movie file. So let me show you that. I'll press Shift-A now to go to add a movie. And I will go find my image. Where is it? Oh, right. So the thing about it, though, is that you have to remove the filter. So over here, we've got this filter. Just uncheck that so you can see it, because normally if you import a movie, it applies filters on the extension for like MP4, MOV, that kind of thing. But now that I've taken the filter off, I can see there it is. That's my animated GIF. I will add it now. And you can see, as I'll just use the right arrow key, you can see that it brings it in and it's already ready to go. Would still need to adjust for the frame rate and such, but a much easier process than having to take that file, go out into the terminal and run FFmpeg and then bring those results in. Speaking of frame rate, let's talk about that, because I've created a few of my videos where I talk about the challenge of bringing in different movie files that have different frame rates. What used to happen is that the first video you bring into your scene, it would play fine, so the audio and video would be in perfect sync. Blender, it would set the frame rate according to whatever it detected from your first video. And then when you bring in additional videos, if they were not the same frame rate, then the audio would be fine, but the video part would be either faster or shorter, depending on its frame rate compared to the frame rate of the first video. So let me show you how it works now. I will create a new scene for this, and I will start by going in, and I'll go here because I have two different video files here, 24 frames per second and 29.98 frames per second. So I load in the first one, and the easy way to tell if it came in properly for a normal video is that if you zoom all the way out, you'll see that the movie and the audio strips have the same length. So now I will add the other movie that's running at 29.98 frames per second. And there you see it also came in with no problems. The video and audio strips are fine. So why does that happen? That happens because when we go back into this ad, there is now a new feature, adjust playback rate. So when this option is checked, then when you bring in that video, it will just come in right. You don't need to worry about the frame rate. It doesn't matter if you're working with 100 different frame rates. Well, I haven't tested, but I'm assuming. Then they'll just play right. You don't have to fiddle. You don't have to mess around with adding the speed control effect strip. It'll just work. Now, if you wanted to work with it directly, not let Blender tweak things behind the scenes for you, uncheck that option and then click Add Movie Strip. So now that is in, you can see that while the strips are the same length, the audio portion is actually going to cut off right here, and the video will continue playing this much longer. One other note is, so far I haven't figured out how to turn that option off. Like if you imported something and then you decided later you didn't want it to be magically ready to go at whatever frame rate, doesn't seem to be an option from the strip settings over here. But then again, I'm not sure why you would need to do that. One last thing I want to mention is that in some of my prior videos, I've talked about how you can use the speed control effect strip if you needed to cut it. You would have to either stick it inside of a meta strip and cut it, or create a new scene and then load in the scene with the video and the effect strip and then cut that scene. What I've recently discovered is that the audio won't work out well. So I'm going to guess that that's a bug. If you do have work that you've done there and you do need to cut the results of that, one possible solution there would be to render it out. So export it as a movie file and then bring it in, and then you can cut as you please, because now it's hard-coded in there. So moving on, another thing I've noticed but haven't used yet is pinning. you can pin panels inside of this section here. As an example, let's say you're working a lot with mask modifiers. You know that you'd have to go down to the modifiers section and then from there, add a mask modifier and then configure it as you need to. Kind of a pain to have to go up and down from strip to mask modifiers every single time. But what you can do is right click on this part right here where it's got all these dots and say pin. And once you have that pinned, now it's available everywhere on all of the different tabs here. So already handy. What makes it even more useful is the fact that you can move it, because right now it's at the top. So let me minimize that, and I can click on this and drag to bring it down. Like let's say I need it down over here, just under the crop. There we go. So now it's under crop, and that's where it's going to be. And if I switch over to tool, it'll just be at the top there. Over here, of course, it's there. I come back over to the strip, and there it is under crop where I left it. So pretty neat, pretty neat. All right, so now the last thing I want to talk to you about is the new selection modes that you have in the graph editor. Hit home. So let's see what we have here. We have box select, like we saw before. That's going to work the same. I'm not sure what those do. And then there's circle select and lasso select. Circle select is going to be my new favorite thing. But let's start by talking about selection in general. Okay, so right now we can see, looks like everything is selected right now. So meaning, let me press N to get rid of that. Okay, if I press G, right, everything moves. So it's all selected. Let me double tap on A to unselect everything. So without all these other funny things, what you could do is, like usual, you could do a box select. Right, we've been able to do that for a long time, and then you have these 2 points selected. Let me unselect, deselect. Or you can click on the individual points that you want to work with. So, and hold down on Shift key to select more. That's a little bit difficult though. Now let me show you the circle select. So I'll go to select and say circle select. And this, now instead of trying to find that little point and clicking on it, it's so much easier now. You have a nice circle you can use. You don't have to be right on the dot. You can be off to the side. Click to select, hold down on Shift to deselect, and even better is you can use your mouse wheel to increase the size of the circle. So mouse wheel in, up to make it smaller, make it harder to try to click on, or mouse wheel down to make it bigger. Press the right click to finish with that selection, and then you can go ahead and start working with them as you please. The last one is lasso select. Just draw the shape that you want, like this. I can draw, and then it shows you what you're going to pick up. So if I do it like that and let go, there we go. I've selected all of these, right? So the shortcuts for this, let's see. Control left mouse button. So let's see about that. Control left mouse button. Oh yeah, there we go. So you can just hold on to control. Oh, I think I missed that. And add that back in. There we go. So now I've got those. But the only thing I don't like so far with the lasso select is the fact that the hotkeys are different between the editors that I've played with so far, which is just this one, the graph editor, and the movie clip editor. So here you can see within this menu, to use it is Control left mouse, and to subtract is Shift Control left mouse inside of the graph editor. Now if I switch over to this workspace and we look inside of the movie clip editor instead of graph editor, then we'll see that it is instead within here Control Alt left mouse and Shift Control Alt left mouse. So they made it different between the editors. I don't know why they did that. They typically don't. And what's even worse is that Control Alt left mouse, I can't even do that inside of Antix, my distro, because if I try to do that Control Alt left mouse, it makes the window go away. All right, so that's it. That's everything that I've noticed so far. All the new things that I haven't talked about yet on my channel with Blender, which is currently 3.4.1. Hope you found that interesting. Hope you picked up a few things. And hope you liked that. If you did, please do give this a like, subscribe so you can see more content when it comes. Thanks, and bye now. We are now at Blender 3.4.1. We are now at Blender version 3.4.1. We are now at version Blender